Timesheets.
Not clutch.
Watching Kansas State live on ESPN while doing timesheets.
Clutch.
And avoiding the wrath of Kathy in accounting.
Fiscally clutch.
Watch college hoops live anytime, anywhere. Download the app or visit watchespn.com.
So clutch.
Danica Patrick, the first woman to win the pole at a Sprint Cup event. She clocked a high speed of 196.434 miles per hour to take that pole. Jeff Gordon will round out the front row in the 2 spot. Right now, let's welcome in NASCAR insider Mike Massaro from Daytona. Mike, what can you tell us about the history made today?
Well, there's quite a buzz here in Daytona, as you might imagine, and the buzz has been going on for at least 24 hours now. During practice on Saturday, it was clear that Danica Patrick was among the favorites to win the pole. She turned only 2 laps in the first practice session. That stood up as being the fastest for quite a while. It was eventually topped, but once they went into the second practice session yesterday, it was clear that her car was the one to beat. She backed up that time, actually was a little bit faster today, and is on the pole for the biggest race of the year. So obviously a groundbreaking event here for NASCAR as she becomes the first woman ever to win a pole in the Sprint Cup Series.
What does this mean to NASCAR, what Danica accomplished today?
You know, it's really hard to put that in perspective at this point in time. I think Brad Keselowski said it best to me moments ago when we talked to him. He said, look, we all look at her just as a regular race car driver. We don't look at her as a female race car driver. So I don't think it's really sunk in yet with the drivers here how big an accomplishment this is and how much of a milestone this is for the sport. But certainly the magnitude of this is yet to be felt. But certainly it's going to create a lot of hype heading into the biggest race of the year next week, the Daytona 500.
Yeah, certainly no question about that, Mike. Her previous best position starting was 23rd. So what does this mean for Danica to make that jump and now come out of the pole position?
You know, it's got to give her confidence, I would think. I spoke with her about 3 weeks ago at a preseason event about last year's Daytona 500 experience, and she described it as being one of her worst race weekends ever. She crashed in the qualifying race. She crashed in the Daytona 500 very early on. It was a miserable weekend for her. So to be able to put all that history behind her and start fresh like this, it has to boost her confidence, and that's something I think she needs going into this race because, you know, these veterans, you know, in this series, they're not going to cut her any slack, especially in the Daytona 500. Jeff Gordon said it himself, and he'll start right outside her on this front row in the Daytona 500. He said that in this particular race, they do whatever they can to exploit weakness and inexperience. And Danica Patrick does have an experience, so having confidence will help, but she still needs to guard against those veterans trying to take advantage of her in the race.
And you look at previous history here, the Daytona 500 pole, it really hasn't meant a whole lot lately because a pole winner has not finished in the top 5 since 2001. So how do you take what she accomplished today and not read too much into it, Mike? Well,
I mean, it's certainly an achievement, but you're right. This style of racing, when it comes to restrictor plate racing and the power of the draft, you know, as long as you've got a good race car and you've got good instincts in the draft and you've got partners to work with you, you can make up a lot of ground and you can make up a lot of positions. So starting up front is great, but, you know, we've seen this race won from mid-pack, from the back of the pack. It really doesn't matter where you start. As long as you're in it and you've got a good race car and you've got good instincts, I think you can win it. But, you know, for Danica to be able to start up front, you know, that's certainly a step in the right direction. On top of that, she doesn't have to really worry about qualifying through the dual race on Thursday. A lot of other drivers out there are probably going to be, you know, in conservation mode, so to speak, trying not to wreck their race car in that race and probably facing quite a nerve-wracking week heading into the Daytona 500, whereas Danica Patrick can just kind of kick back and relax. She knows she's in.